Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Is Davante Adams leaving Las Vegas? Also, how is Caleb Williams settling in the Windy City after a prolonged contract negotiation? And what do the Cowboys, Packers, Rams, and Jets all have in common?
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Davante Adams in the Netflix docuseries Receiver is seen and heard wondering, plotting to get out of Las Vegas if the quarterback play doesn't get better. And in the offseason, Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are the apparent starters in Las Vegas. So where does that leave us? Your boy Q from Locked On Raiders joins me now. And Q, it does seem like a fair question to raise right now, considering some of the stuff that Davante said. Look, in the heat of battle, I understand that you say things on the sidelines, you're getting killed, and you're going, come on, I gotta do something here. But you have other players speculating he wants to be traded. Where are we in Las Vegas?
Well, right now, Davante is happy in Las Vegas, right? And I start that off by saying right now he's happy in Las Vegas. He's got a good relationship with Aiden O'Connell, and he's got an even better relationship with Antonio Pierce, the guy that he really pounded the table and said, that dude needs to be the head coach of the Raiders. Well, Mark Davis heard him, heard Max Crosby, heard Josh Jacobs and others and said, okay, he's going to be the head coach. So AP is there, and Aiden O'Connell and Davante actually have a really good relationship. Now, does that mean he's going to be happy with Aiden O'Connell throwing on the ball consistently throughout the course of the 2024 season? No, of course not, because we don't know what it's going to look like. So that's obviously going to be the big question, is how's the quarterback play? What's the offense going to look like? But what we saw in that receiver series is a really bad offense and bad execution. Jimmy G was terrible, couldn't get Davante the ball. When he did, he was getting them killed. He set him up with more medicine balls than a little bit, right? It was just not a good situation for Davante. That goes back to training camp when he got lit up by the 49ers and had to get helped off the field. And we knew then that, oh boy, it could be a long season for Davante, and it turned into that. So it's going to be interesting, Peter. Like, the Raiders offense is a big question mark going into training camp, right? We have no idea what this new offense under Luke Getsy is going to look like. The one thing Davante has said is, I like this offense. I know 90% of the calls from my time with Luke Getsy. So when they make the call, I don't have to look at my play sheet. I know what to go and do and what to execute. So he's happy with the offense right now. He's happy with Aiden O'Connell right now. He likes Gardner Minshew. The competition will begin in training camp, and we'll see who gets it. But right now, Davante is happy with where he's at in Las Vegas.
Yeah, last year, if you watch the Raiders, more medicine balls than at Anytime Fitness in that one.
Right.
And if you're Davante Adams, this is a team that has listened, right? You mentioned Antonio Pierce. That was in part because of stars like Davante Adams and Max Crosby saying, this is my guy. You bring an offensive coordinator that was with him in Green Bay when he was an all-pro. But my question to you, Q, is this a little bit of be careful what you wish for? You asked to go to Las Vegas, away from Aaron Rodgers. You asked to have all this say, but they still haven't done the one thing that as a receiver you really need to do, and that's have a really good quarterback.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is, he's obviously very familiar with Rodgers. He went to the Raiders with the expectations of being really familiar with Carr. Yeah. And Carr didn't last that long. And they had a really good season, but there was a lot of balls, Peter, that Carr threw that were, what was that? How come that wasn't thrown where it's supposed to be? Like Davante, statistically, if you just go back and look at the numbers he had the season with Carr, it looks really good on paper, but there was a lot of meat left on the bone. I could tell you that from covering the team and being there each and every game. There was a lot of meat left on the bone, and there was a lot of people left scratching their head like, what was that? I thought these guys were going to, rekindle their Fresno State magic, and it really wasn't that. So it's wild to think that he had one quarterback in Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, and since he's been with the Raiders in a couple short years, he's had Carr, he's at Jimmy Garoppolo, he's at Brian Hoyer, he's at Aiden O'Connell, and oh, by the way, he's also got Gardner Minshew added to the mix. 5 quarterbacks in a couple of years where he had one consistent, by the way, going to be a Hall of Famer quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. So a lot of questions. He's been a lot more patient than I think a lot of people expected.
Davante Adams, not the first or the last to go to Las Vegas with a hope and a dream and to come up a little disappointed in how it all played out.
Well done.
is this they don't build castles in the desert for nothing, Q.
Thanks.
what is the most likely outcome for all of this? Like, is this 1 year? And if that's not better, then he's gone, or has he, he came to be closer to his family, to have a lot of other things than just success on the football field?
I think this is a big year for Davante. And honestly, I think this is a big year for the Raiders. And I don't even mean the full season. The Raiders, if you look at their schedule, they play 9 games and then they have the bye week. Well, that just so happens to go hand in hand with the trade deadline. The trade deadline date is November 5th. The Raiders are on a bye that week. They played 9 games. I think if the Raiders are out of it by the bye week, then Davante's moved. I really do. And honestly, if they start out like 0-6, I can see the writing on the wall. Like, okay, Davante gave it an effort. He really did try. He wanted to make things work, and he does. But if things are just piss poor and he could tell that it's not going to get better, I wouldn't blame him for wanting to get out and go anywhere where he has a chance to win. And look, he could stay on the West Coast. He doesn't necessarily have to go with the Jets. He could end up somewhere like, I don't know, San Francisco, who's, got a wide receiver right now that wants to get up out of there. So there's all kind of different places he could end up. I think the Raiders, it's on them to make sure that this is going to work. But I think this team is going to shock a lot of teams, a lot of people around the league. I think they're going to be better than most people expect. But it's always going to be the question about the quarterbacks. Can they consistently play at a high level? And if they can, this team will be really good. If they can't, well, then things could happen and change quick, fast, in a hurry. So I think that the first 9 games of the season are really kind of the real evidence or what needs to be proven.
The litmus test.
Yes, the litmus test. That's a great way to put it. That if they're out of it by the bye week, he might be out of there.
Stay up to date all year on the Las Vegas Raiders by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Raiders on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, Caleb Williams is busy convincing Bears fans he's more than a contract. Before we get to that, we go around the league ahead of training camp. Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app, and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Bengals camp will begin with a similar question to the past few camps. Just how healthy is Joe Burrow?
That said, camp starts at the end of July, right? Next week. It does not start in September, and they need him to be ready to go in September. We saw last year what happened. So I do think that they're still going to be cautious. He's going to be aware of that as well. And the other element here that I'll be watching is what if he's dealing with, and he dealt with all sorts of stuff just last year alone, nicks and aches and pains, all these little things. If he has any little things throughout camp, does he say, I'm okay. I'll see you after the off day tomorrow, and I'm going to take a couple days off. I wonder if he's going to be willing to do that, if the Bengals make him do that. That's a storyline that I think we're going to cover a lot. But as far as him being physically ready to go, yeah, I expect him to be physically ready to go when veterans at least report on July 23rd.
And speaking of quarterback questions, the Broncos need to figure out if Bo Nix is ready to take the reins or if they should roll with Jarrett Stidham.
It shouldn't be just, well, there's the seniority and Jarrett Stidham spent a whole year in Sean Payton's offense. I mean, there is an element of honoring that. And if Jarrett Stidham is practicing better and he's got better chemistry with the receivers and he's running the offense better, then that's a different story completely. But if this team knows the direction and they know exactly, hey, let's say behind closed doors, if you're a fly on the wall, you hear them talking and they're saying, Bo is our starter week 1 at Seattle. What do we got to do to get ready for that? Then don't have any sort of contrived quarterback competition for the sake of the media or for the sake of optics or things like that. I just think, Cody, I don't know that there's an exact date to me that I think, well, you and I will talk about that. Actually, you and I maybe do have kind of an exact date here of when we should hear of this starting quarterback competition being over. But when I say I don't think there needs to be an exact date, what I mean is that if they want to come out on day 1 of training camp and say Bo Nix is our starter, would you be surprised by that? I mean, or would you be taken aback by that? Would it
No.
offend you? I mean, I don't think so. I think to me, if they know the direction, go for it. But at the same time, if you really feel like there's a chance, any percentage chance that Bo Nix is not ready to start at the beginning of the year, maybe let this drag on a little bit.
And the New York Giants have a quarterback battle on their hands, but not a conventional one.
There is a competition for Daniel Jones. And no, it's not necessarily Drew Lock. No, it's not necessarily Tommy DeVito or Nathan Rourke. The competition is Daniel Jones. So it's Daniel Jones versus Daniel Jones. And I know, as I just said that, I had that Spider-Man meme, in my head where the two twin Spider-Mans are kind of pointing at each other. But let me explain to you what I mean by that. Daniel Jones, when the heat has been lit under his seat, he has risen to the occasion. All right. Now, I'm going to go back to the 2022 season because I think this is a great example of Daniel Jones going up against Daniel Jones, competing against himself, if you will, and coming out on top. And I know it's just one, small sample size, but right now that's all we have to go on. So in 2022, before that season started, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, of course, were new to the team. They had a decision to make. Do we pick up Daniel Jones's option year and his rookie deal, or do we let him play for his next contract? And we all know what happened. They decided to let him play for his next contract. And some of you are like, well, they should have picked it up and just rolled with it. And some of you are like, oh, they made the right decision. Now, as far as I'm concerned, they made the right decision at the time, despite what happened in that season.
Crisis averted. The Chicago Bears signed the number 1 overall pick. Okay, there was no real crisis, but we have to gin up some drama here in mid-July with the Bears set to open training camp ahead of everyone else because they're going to play ahead of everyone else. Lauren Cox, who's usually ahead of everyone else from Locked On Bears, joins me now. And Lauren, one of the interesting nuggets out of this contract negotiation, aside from the fact that it just came pretty late in the process here, is that Caleb Williams reportedly asked for a no franchise tag clause. And this is particularly interesting to me because Caleb Williams and his dad over the last couple of months made it seem like they wanted to change the paradigm for quarterback power, player empowerment, all that stuff. And they wound up with nothing.
I mean, I'm sure they got a lot of the offset language they wanted in the contract. I think in exchange for, but you come to the bargaining table and you say, listen, we want no franchise tag. He asked to be paid in an LLC for tax purposes, and also asked for deferred payment via a refundable loan so that he wouldn't get taxed on it when it was given to him. The Bears said no. But when you go, when you come to the table with those,
you gotta ask, right?
Yeah, you set the anchor there, and then it's like, okay, well, we're sacrificing these things that we wanted. So then can you give us, the injury guarantees and the offset language? And then he gets then everyone ends up happy because I think the Bears weren't going to bicker too much about like the normal stuff because he's the number 1 overall pick. Like if he gets hurt and you need to avoid the injury guarantees there, like everyone's fired anyway. So the money you would save on the guaranteed money is not helping anything at that point. It's game over if anything goes wrong.
If not Caleb with the Bears, given how quarterback hungry that organization is, with what the quality of prospect that Caleb Williams is it fair to wonder like who this would happen for? Like there's got to be a rookie at some point who's going to get some sort of significant concession. But this seemed like the opportunity and they didn't get it.
Yeah, if anyone was going to be able to pull this move, like it is definitely Caleb Williams. And the fact that he didn't, I think, really really doesn't blend well for anybody doing this. Like the Bears were able to cite the NFL. Like they basically blamed the league for a lot of the other stuff. I mean, they said, well, the CBA and the league tells us we can't pay you in an LLC, and the league tells us we can't do this. I don't know if the league told them that they can't do the franchise tag, but I think the 31 other owners, well, I guess the Packers don't count that, but 30 other owners plus the public of Green Bay would not want to see a player get this for the first time, because then it sets that precedent. The next number one overall pick comes in and says, well, Caleb said there's no franchise tag thing. And then how many other players are going to try and get that? And then does that become a thing where it becomes out of control? So I think the NFL may have come to the Bears and say, hey, wait a minute, we're not setting this as a standard for Caleb Williams here. We're not going to let other quarterbacks start to get this on their rookie contracts.
How is all of this playing right now with Bears fans? Because there was pre-draft this infighting and factions saying we want Justin Fields still and trade the pick, and then there's groups that are pro Justin Fields saying, oh, look at X, Y, and Z criticisms, but now he's the guy, and there's still some of these things where they're like, does the franchise tag mean he wants to be traded already? Like he doesn't want to be here, all that stuff. So how is all of this playing with Bears fans right now?
Yeah, I think for the most part, there's been a good embrace with open arms to say, all right, he's the guy, like it or not. I mean,
he seems to have embraced Chicago.
Yes, absolutely. Like they're building a good relationship there. I just think there are a lot of Bears fans who, just went through a breakup and are kind of still in love with their ex, but they really like this new guy that they just met. And like, he seems great. So like, we got to give him a chance, because maybe he could be the one. And this last guy clearly was just not, we thought he was the one, but like, turns out, it wasn't me, it was you, and we had to do the breakup. So I think there's a lot of Bears fans who are still like in love and looking in Pittsburgh going, oh, how's it going over there? And okay, well, maybe it's not, but I still love him, it's like, but I think as Caleb Williams starts to like actually play football games and stuff, I think it'll be a pretty quick embrace and we'll be ready to fully move on to our next love.
Oh, 10 out of 10. No notes, Lauren. I don't know how we can even move on from there. That was incredible stuff. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Stay up to date all year on the Chicago Bears by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Bears on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Cowboys, Packers, Rams, and Jets all have something in common. A great philosopher once said, there's levels to this. There are levels, there are tiers of championship contenders for the NFL. The Cowboys, Packers, Rams, and Jets all reside on the same tier, as our Locked On NFL scouting host Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs discuss.
Make a run. And that's why if you're consuming this podcast, please listen to the words we say and don't just be so individually consumed by not having the Packers or the Texans on the second tier, right? I would say the Packers, for me, would be the team that is the most likely just because of the numbers. Above them, we have 3 NFC teams that could make them theoretically, even in the pecking order, the 4th team in the conference, or they are the 4th team in the conference from the way that we have it scored. And I could very easily, and we've said this a couple of times, see them edging Detroit to win that division. That division feels open. They had San Francisco on the ropes last year in the playoffs on the road.
Yeah.
So the Jets are the team that, with all the attention that they get and being in the New York market and Aaron Rodgers, all of their big time players that they didn't have on defense last year, all of their other players that are supposed to help push them through the top are players with severe durability questions. And I think that's, for the Jets, the big question is, what does Aaron look like coming back off the Achilles? How long can Mike Williams stay healthy? How long can Tyron Smith stay healthy? How long can Elijah Vera Tucker stay healthy? And if they get fortunate breaks on that front, I think they are a team that can be present late and make some noise.
Yeah, I think Dallas and the Rams in the NFC, I think they're certainly going to be playoff teams. I'd be surprised if either wasn't, but I think Dallas is objectively a worse football team than they were a year ago. And that was a team that had a good record and scored a lot of points, but you kind of wondered, do they have enough horses on defense to not get beat up front when teams can run the ball on them? And there's obviously transition with Dan Quinn there. And I think their offensive line has a lot of question marks, even pass catchers outside of CeeDee Lamb. Like there's running back. There's a lot of question marks with Dallas.
One of these things is not like the other. The Cowboys won 12 games last year and went to the playoffs. The Packers not only went to the playoffs, they won a playoff game, the youngest team ever to do so. They were the youngest team in the league last season with a first-year quarterback and only first and second-year pass catchers. They are clearly on the verge of something. And the Rams have one of the best coach-quarterback combos in the NFL. The New York Jets' hopes reside on the right arm of Aaron Rodgers. That was in, apparently, Egypt for mandatory minicamp. It will reside on the legs of Mike Williams functioning properly. It will reside, the burden of this season will reside on the tendons and the muscle strength in the back of Tyron Smith and the head coaching prowess of Robert Saleh. None of these things are sturdy right now. None of these things are proven together. You can't just slap a team together that is really good defensively and say, well, our quarterback will lift us up. Well, that didn't work last year. Yes, Aaron Rodgers got hurt, but it also exposed key weaknesses about that team on the offensive line with the pass catchers and with Nathaniel Hackett. Is there some magic that is going to make Aaron Rodgers play like 2020 Aaron Rodgers? Because even the 2021 MVP version of Aaron Rodgers was not that guy. And the 2022 version, with much more uncertainty and strife and turnover around him, looked like a much different player. One of the worst versions of Aaron Rodgers we've seen in a long time, which is another way of saying the last time we saw Aaron Rodgers on a football field for an entire season, he played like a mediocre to below average quarterback. I know, I was there. Why are the Jets in this group? Because we know the names of Tyron Smith and Mike Williams, who they added in the offseason? Because we think Aaron Rodgers can still do it at 40 years old, coming off of an Achilles injury, when it has been clear his interest and focus has been waning the last few seasons? We're just sure this is going to all go great? I'm not. And finally, move over Freddie Adu. There is a new youngest player ever. Kevin Sullivan took the field for the Philadelphia Union at the age of 14. And this is just the beginning for Sullivan. The young American signed the largest homegrown contract in Major League Soccer history on May 9th. In it, the deal stipulates Sullivan will transfer to English Premier League power Manchester City after he turns 18. Cheers, Sullivan. Well, when you're old enough to do that. But congrats all the same. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, what can we expect from the rest of the Major League Baseball season? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.